Hey y'all, House CM here. I'm super pumped for the new Icewind Dale campaign setting. Basically, I set out to make a bunch of snow hill terrain. Now, the closest I got to like a good looking snow hill is this one right here. I think it looks okay. It's playable, which is what I wanted. I wanted these to be something that you could take miniature and set it on anywhere on the hill and have it work and make sense. And this took me 4 hours to get down right after doing 3 other iterations that just kind of failed. Making snow flocking is completely outside of my comfort zone. I've never done it before. And it was definitely a learning process. So hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and don't do what I did and instead do what I did. Yeah. What I ended up with was not what I was planning on making to begin with, but I'm pretty happy with how this awesome snow scatter terrain turned out. So with all that information, let me show you what I did. So these are the terrain pieces I'm going to add the snow flock to, and I just grabbed a plastic container out of my recycling bin. I'm going to take some baking soda, and I ended up getting this matte medium. Thanks to Scott over on Miniac for the awesome recipe. Grab a spoon if you have particularly chunky baking soda and just break it down so it's nice and fine. And 2 scoops of yogurt, mix it all up. It's not yogurt, it's don't eat this. So I end up adding a little bit more baking soda because I'm looking for a specific consistency that is kind of like a chunky icing. You're basically icing a cake. And once you're happy with what you got, go ahead and take it and scoop it out and apply it onto your terrain pieces. I'm using a crappy paintbrush I have here. Don't use any nice brushes for this. The baking soda will get pretty caked up in there. And now I'm just carefully applying it around the base. I do end up taking some of this and I'm going to put it on top of the rock as well, just to give it more of that realistic, snowfall effect. And you'll see me here kind of dabbing it with the paintbrush. I'm trying to just flatten out some of the peaks that form and just smoothen them out to make it look a bit more natural. And now we're going to take our cake icing and just slop it all over your terrain piece. Now, this was a little bit of a challenge to get it into that raised sections where the foam board kind of lifted up from the base of the medium weight chipboard. So I do wet the paintbrush a little bit to help it kind of smooth into those crevices there and sort of just give it that wind blown snow look. And after you're done, don't forget to rinse your spoon off. I really liked how that first piece of scatter turned out, so in a sudden burst of inspiration I grabbed my Olfa knife, a bunch of scrap foam, and got to work with my creativity leading me on this new quest. And for those of you who understand crafting with foam, I'm sure this is a familiar scene for you. You know how it is. Doing the old crumpled aluminum foil next for texture. And once these rocks are all done, I'm going to apply a mixture of Mod Podge and black paint before painting them gray. Now, while I'm painting these gray, I'm actually curious for those of you who are watching, what is your favorite snow-themed monster encounter that you've ever thrown at your players, if you're a DM? Just curious. Let me know. Alright, next step is a light dry brush, and I mean light, with this cheap apple barrel gray paint. And then once I've done that to all of these rocks, I'm going to do it again, but with a tan. And here's that tan. I think my favorite snow encounter was a Remoraz on top of a frozen ice lake, or a Buer hag using Kona Cold. Gosh, that spell's brutal. Then I'm going to apply a homemade black wash. It's just water, black paint, and some dish soap. And I felt like I should stick with the theme of trying new things outside of my comfort zone, so I decided to give them a post-wash dry brush in blue. And I was super nervous that this was going to ruin them, and you know what? They turned out pretty good. And now to apply the snow flock all over these new rocks that I just made. I'm trying to make sure that I'm using the brush carefully here, but I do want to get it into those little crevices so that it looks like the snow naturally blew into that area. I used a brush here, but you could easily use your fingers. You'll see in one of my other rocks, I do actually use my fingers to push the snow into place. I just find that's a little bit easier. Oh yeah, these are going to look great. Now, you don't see this on camera, but I did dip my fingers in some water to help smooth out the baking soda a bit. This helped it be a bit more malleable. Just go easy on it or it'll look more like slush than like snow. Since I didn't paint the cardstock base beforehand, I ended up going over the base with a watered down white paint. Make sure to water down the paint first or else it won't blend into the baking soda that well. You can kind of see a clear difference between the white of the baking soda and the white of your paint. So what happened with the snow hills, you ask? Well, they look okay. I think the concentration of the baking soda makes them a little, I'm not really sure how to describe it. It's caked on there pretty thick, and if you bend it slightly, at least on the cardstock, it'll crack a bit. And this was after 4 hours in the sun, so I don't think it's going to get any better than that. Alright, so this is kind of what I ended up with at the end of this whole experiment. The piece on the far left, that is basically just the baking soda and matte medium combined and dried, and then I painted it with a white, just some basic white paint. The two in the middle are basically a pretty heavy coating of baking soda and matte medium, and then the one just above it there is a very light coating of it, and then the one on the far right is actually this Liquitex flexible molding paste that I was trying out as well, and it's okay. It looks pretty good, but it is still kind of like I can push it and it's squishy here, at least for that slope I made. I will probably still put a baking soda and matte medium on top of this one once it fully dries, but it's not quite dry yet. Whereas with these ones, they're kind of sandy. So I get some of that baking soda residue coming off on them. It looks the most like snow, so Miniac was definitely pretty on point with how it looks for realism. Unfortunately, with terrain, it will crack if you slightly bend it or move the the pieces a little bit. So that's something that I've noticed. And then of course, the one thing that is the experiment was just a piece of terrain with some of that snow on it. This just baking soda and matte medium looks great. Like that looks like a full-on fantastic piece there. I mean, it works great for small bits of terrain or for miniatures, but unfortunately for larger bits of terrain, I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. It doesn't quite have the look that I was going for. So I am going to go ahead and put another, well, the first coat of baking soda and matte medium onto this one. This is the one that had the Liquitex modeling paste on it. We'll see how it does. And now here I'm just adding a top clear coat and a matte spray. And this is just to help protect the paint on the rocks a little bit. I threw the hill in there too because, yeah, why not? I gotta say I'm pretty impressed with how these rocks turned out. I think the snow looks natural on them, and I think they'll look great in a Icewind Dale campaign setting. Whereas the snow hills, well, that's a different story. Now I believe it's time for a harrowing tale of low passive perception. Our adventurers have been down on their luck as of late. The arrival of a massive ice storm can attest to this. They march through the freezing and dense snow, desperately searching for anything that might act as shelter and peaceful respite. "Horace, this weather will be the death of us," cried the scout.
"There, follow."
Horace harrowingly navigated the group onwards to a collection of rocky outcroppings that may shield them from the elements. It was far from ideal, but their very survival was at stake here.
"This could serve as shelter for..."
He trails off as one of the rocks rotates with a shattering icy crash. "Horace, look out!" A starving roper hidden in the rocks lashed out at Horace with 5 horrible tentacled arms. Sometimes you eat rocks, other times the rocks eat you. There you have it. Welcome to the chilling conclusion of my icy terrain situation. It's not a word. Unfortunately, the snowy hills just... it's kind of a letdown. But hey, you can't win all of them, right? But I do like how these turned out. I really think that these scattered terrain rocks with the snow flocking on the bottom and on the top, I'm satisfied with putting these on my table. I think these are good. So if you like this video and you found it helpful, go ahead and throw me a like. Really appreciate that. It helps me to build the channel up. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you're also super excited for the Icewind Dale campaign, let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget that I have my Instagram handle set up. It's at JakeHouseDM. I post there very regularly, so check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all later.